early again? I said yes. On December 25th, Christmas, she said hi, and then Merry Christmas, babe. This does sound like a couple that is broken up. On December 30th, 2024, we sleep together. Me, okay, I'm going to bed. Emiru said, okay. I then said, I'm just getting ready. Emiru said, do you want to sleep together? I then said, yeah. Keep in mind that a lot of the calls that we would have with each other are not shown because we called each other every single day as we slept with each other every single night. January the 15th to 18th, I call her babe in a text. Her filing said that we did not get back together after the October 2024 breakup, as she describes. These are her own messages from November, December, and January. All after that date, the filing and the messages describe two different relationships. Our next point, she also says that she ended the relationship. But here's what actually happened the morning I walked out. We were together on and off for 3 years. A relationship we kept hidden from almost everyone around us. But near the end, we broke up. We got back together more times than I can count. I wanted space and she wanted to move closer. I told her I wanted her to move out and that I wanted space, and it was a line that never healed. The week of our official breakup in January, we had agreed to finally sit down and each say what we wanted for the future. We slept at her house. On the morning of January 23rd, 2025, she handed me a note, and in it, she wrote that she wanted to marry me, that she wanted to build a life and move into an apartment right next to me because she knew how much I needed my space. And I looked at it. I looked at her and I handed it back to her. I told her, I can't do this anymore and I'm sorry. And the last thing I heard as I was closing her front door, and she said, don't go. This is who ended it. So in my complaint, I said, he called off the relationship in January 2025. So to be exact, the exact date that our relationship ended was on January 23rd, 2025. I left Austin in early February, first for Japan, and the move to Los Angeles came afterwards. After 2 trips overseas, the day by day in the timeline is going to be shown. These messages are shown with me and at one point my best friend Extra Emily. So Extra Emily knew that I wanted to break up with Emiru for a long time. And these messages are on the exact date that I broke up with Emiru on January 23rd, 2025. I messaged her and I said, bitch, I did it. I ended it. Emily said, shut up. No way. I'm free to call whenever. I said, are you streaming? And she said, not until Saturday. And then I messaged her and I said, okay, I'll call in 5. The conversation didn't end there. 2 days later, on January 25th, it was Emiru reaching out to talk things over with Extra Emily. And Extra Emily had already heard from me that it was over. So this is January 25th, 2025. Extra Emily says, okay. And then she says, she texted me to talk. I'm pretending like you didn't tell me the news. Okay, I'm talking to her on the phone soon. I then said, are you streaming tomorrow? And she said, no. So if this doesn't prove that Emiru is lying, that who broke up with who, I don't know what does. So now we're gonna move on to the stalking allegations and where I actually was. On February 2nd, 2025, about 10 days after we broke up, I flew to Japan. The reason why I flew to Japan is that I knew if I stayed in Austin, that we were just gonna get back together and get in the same loop that we had been in for almost a year. On February 21st, 2025, I came back to Austin and stayed about 3 weeks. This is when my friend Simply had a party, which is the one that she ties to stalking, was on February 23rd, 2 days after I landed, about a month after we broke up. On March 16th, 2025, I flew back to Japan and stayed there for nearly 2 months. On May 12th, 2025, I returned to Austin for about 2.5 weeks. And in May 29th, 2025, I moved to Los Angeles. Stalking means being near someone and contacting them when they don't want it. For most of the year after we ended it, I was on another continent and then in another state. I put distance between us deliberately, more than once. And on my own stream, here is what I exactly said about it. That week, I made flights to Japan because I didn't want to sit around and wait possibly to get back together again. I have never talked to her in person since. I have been removed from OTK Discords. I did see her at a party once at Simply's house, one of my close friends. The house was very small and I opened the door. I said, whoops, I want to make it very clear I was not following her. It just happened that I was with someone she knew the entire night. The house is about 2,000 square feet with about 50 people. I, of course, was near her, but I was never following her. The specific incident she calls stalking is a party. Here's how she described it on her own stream from the certified transcript she filed herself. I made the mistake of thinking that I only had to cut him off through personal private communication, but I also had to start avoiding going to the same parties or places I was worried he'd be. There was a party that I attended. I was aware that he would be there and I thought it wouldn't be a big deal. We're adults, right? During this party, I felt like he was following me around and monitoring me, but I thought that that was just being paranoid. About 30 minutes later, the room that we're in, the door opens, it's Miz. He opens the door, makes eye contact with me, goes ooh, and closes the door and leaves. That is the entirety of her stalking allegations. Read in her own words, this is obviously not stalking. She was never cut off. She says that she cut me off through personal private communication, but she controlled the contact. She didn't block me, and on her own stream, she showed messages proving that I could still reach her. Choosing not to answer someone while never blocking them, while leaving every channel they could use to reach you wide open, and while showing no sign that you want them to stop is not the same as being stalked. She also knew that I was going to be there. In her own words, she was aware that I would be there and chose to attend the same party. Going somewhere you knew the other person would be at is the opposite of being followed. She also says that she felt and thought she was paranoid. She does not say I actually followed or monitored her. She said that she felt that way and twice told her audience that she thought she was just being paranoid. And lastly, I opened the door and I left. Her one concrete moment is that about 30 minutes later, I opened a door, saw that she was inside and said ooh, and walked away. Stalkers follow you. They obsess over you. They don't open a door at your friend's party and walk away. This is the entire first-hand account in her own filing. On the strength of it, that she listed stalking among the crimes she accused me of. If I was stalking her, I would be the worst stalker on the planet. I left the country for months immediately after we broke up, flew to Japan twice, and moved across the country shortly after I returned. That is the behavior of someone pulling as much distance possible between themselves and the other person, not following them. And while she was calling me a stalker in front of millions of people, she was quietly making the rounds through the community, going from person to person behind my back, spreading a version of events I had no opportunity to answer. Emiru also claims on her own stream that she filed a restraining order in 2 states. Emiru said, and I quote, I'm already in the process of filing a restraining order on him in both Texas and California. A restraining order is a public court record. It is not in her motion. It is not in her sworn declaration. It is not in her first reply. She has not produced one or any as of today, roughly 8 months later. After she announced it, there is still no restraining order or protective order of any kind against me that has appeared in Texas or California. My own attorney has received none, and the people who follow the case closely, watching for any filings of any type, have also found none. And the timing is the whole point. In both states she named, an emergency order is built to be fast because it's meant for people in real danger. In California, a judge can grant a temporary restraining order the same day you apply, with a full hearing set just 21 to 25 days later. In Texas, a judge can grant a temporary ex parte protective order the same day on a finding, a clear and present danger with a hearing within 14 days. Someone who genuinely needs protection can have a temporary order in hours, not months. She said that she was already in the process in October 2025. 8 months later, there is nothing. She also told her audience that my lawsuit was a bluff, that I couldn't win. In nearly the same breath, she predicted that I would sue her and waved it off in advance as meaningless. She put, and I quote, "I would not be surprised if he tries to sue me for the stream that I did today and for coming out about him, not because he thinks that he would win, but for PR reasons, like a slap lawsuit." Interesting. So on camera, she was sure of two things: a restraining order was already on the way, and that my case was baseless. It was a PR stunt that I couldn't win. Neither of those things have held up. There's been no restraining order or protective order that has ever appeared in Texas or California. And the judge who reviewed her motion to throw my case out recommended the opposite, that it moves forward. She told her audience I could not win. The court let me proceed. So here's the part that she leaves out about the party. Simply, whose party it was is one of my closest friends. We lived together for years. And at the time, we were going through our both breakups and dealing with our own problems. When I got back from Japan, he is the one who invited me. I was not there to find her. While Simply was giving me a tour of his house, I opened the door, I saw 4 OTK members sitting there in the corner, and closed it. That is the whole opening the door moment that she describes as me stalking her. I want that to sink in, that is what she described as stalking. Moment she describes a tour of my best friend's house is me stalking her. And my own texts from that night prove it in real time. I messaged Extra Emily asking why everyone was upstairs, what the group in the corner was about, and what was going on. I thought that they were making another version of OTK, and I got worried. And Extra Emily just told me to basically not worry at all. That was it. And she somehow labeled that as stalking. In May of 2025, 5 months after we broke up, I sent her a long message by her own account on her own stream. She received it and sat with how to respond until her friends told her it had to be AI. She said, and I quote, "I had someone send me a massive apology message and I wasn't sure what to respond. I showed a couple of friends and they were like, this is literally ChatGPT."
I had someone send me a massive apology message, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to respond, so I showed a couple friends and they were like, "Emmy, this is literally ChatGPT," and I was like, "Oh." I guess I'm not responding.
You could put it back into ChatGPT and be like, "Is this?"
Yeah, no, they did, and ChatGPT said it's probably ChatGPT.
This is obviously about me because we were in a relationship the entire time that ChatGPT has existed. This was months before she even went public with an accusation. You do not consider how to respond to the person you say sexually assaulted, abused you, and stalked you. The only thing that stopped her was that her friends decided that my words were too well written to be mine. Think about that. I would like to now talk about the abuse claim that Emiru tried to hint at on her stream. Here's the truth, in my own words. I have never hit Emiru. The one physical thing that ever happened was an accident. I had a habit of tossing my phone onto my bed, and one time it bounced off the mattress and caught her in the eye, and it left a bruise. I felt terrible about it. I apologized immediately. I stopped throwing my phone that day, and we moved past it. That is the only time I ever hurt her, and it was not on purpose. What makes that more than just my word is that, at the time, her own account matched it in 2022. When she had the bruise, she did not call it abuse to anyone. She called it an accident both publicly and in private. In Emiru's best friend at the time's chat room on August 11, 2022, surrounded by all of Emiru's close friends and even her brother, she said the same thing. When a friend asked her directly whether something had given her the black eye, she answered that it was not intentional and called the whole thing a funny story that she would explain later. Verbatim, "Did someone knock you out, Emily?" Emiru said, "Not intentionally. I got a black eye a week or two and